If someone had said to me 10 years ago that I'd have to make a pitch for protecting voting rights today, I would have said, you've got to be kidding. Last year when the Supreme Court cut the heart out of the Voting Rights Act, it opened up the floodgates to voter suppression. It's time to stand up and to fight back.
That was Vice President Biden today highlighting a truly disturbing truth. 50 years after the Civil Rights Act, civil rights in this country are far from secure. That is especially true for Black Americans who fought so hard for their civil rights those decades ago. And it is especially true for the right to vote. That's why this week, 4 U.S. presidents are traveling to Texas for a civil rights summit. And it's why, for our call to action this week, we're looking at the current state of civil rights in this country. And we're asking you to contact your Secretary of State or Lieutenant Governor to demand more hours for early voting, including on weekends, the disappearance of which, in many states, is disproportionately keeping Black Americans from the polls. Let us know what your state official says on Twitter, @Ronan Daily. Let us know on Facebook or email us at ronanfarrowdaily@msnbc.com, and we will report back throughout this week. We're making it easier for you. We're going to have a link on our website later today with the contact information for your Secretary of State, along with a suggested set of points to email them. You can go to ronanfarrowdaily.msnbc.com for that. Of course, we're going to be looking at different angles on this struggle throughout the week, starting with that particular issue of early voting. And I look at that with 2 people who are in the trenches protecting that. Donita Judge from the Advancement Project, and Deforest Soaries, former U.S. Elections Assistant Commission Chair, as well as the former Secretary of State in New Jersey, so he's dealt with this hands-on. I'll start with you, Deforest, and thank you both of you for joining me. You're very much in the fight on this, so you'll have a hands-on take. Tell me about your departing from that election oversight role. You left in 2005. You expressed a lot of frustration about the access to the vote at that point. Do you think it's gotten better, or has it gotten worse?
No, I think we've gone backwards since not just 2005, but the year 2000. The commission that I chaired was formed as a consequence of the 2000 debacle with the hanging chads. And the Help America Vote Act was passed ostensibly to not only fund the purchase of new voting machines, but also to create federal standards for voting. And I think that's the key. When we talk about voting rights, voting rights function within the context of election administration. Early voting started back in those days, and what's happened is the convergence of partisan bickering and underfunding, a lack of training, and no standards at all. And so we can go literally county by county, state by state, and find different levels of administration, different standards for voting. In fact, voting in India is more uniform than voting is in America.
And that disparate quality around the country, the lack of coherent standards, is, in your opinion, making things slide back?
Well, it's certainly a major factor. Now, there are other factors that Donita really works on every day. But I'm concerned about the morass that exists as it relates to a lack of standards, a lack of consistency, a lack of a modern perspective on voting.
Right.
We are cohering today with standards that were established in the 18th century.
Well, clearly
everything in the world has changed.
Real human costs, because we're seeing stories all around the country, as you do in your work, I know, of people not getting to the polls enough. Let's talk about early voting and the removal of early voting hours in particular. How big an obstacle is that?
Well, it has become a huge obstacle, and for some reason, the states like Ohio and North Carolina, where the reason that they have early voting is because of the problems with guaranteeing the right to vote. What we're seeing now is that these states have decided to now roll back the tide and to reduce the number of early voting hours and early voting days. And in many instances, they've taken away the Sunday, the last Sunday, which was a crucial voting day for the African American community. Many churches organize what we call Souls to the Polls. It has become a family day. It has become an opportunity for children to watch their parents engage in the voting process, to see how important it is. These states have now taken away that last Sunday, which is extremely crucial. And we're really concerned that if we don't stop the pattern, that we will start to see more of our opportunities to vote taken away.
And yet, Donita, I do want to push back slightly, because we did see in 2012 a record high turnout from African American voters. They actually surpassed whites in terms of turnout at the polls in terms of voting rate for the first time in 2012. What do you attribute that to, if indeed we're backsliding, as both Deforest and yourself indicated?
Well, in 2012, we had early voting. We had same-day registration. We had all of the laws that they're now overturning. And I think those laws, if you look at the laws, if you look at the statistics, you will see that the numbers of African Americans increased exponentially as a result of those same-day registration and early voting. And so to take those away, when in fact the members of the state legislatures who are overturning these laws were actually elected as a result of some of these laws, to see them turn back the hands of time, I think we need to be concerned as we move forward, and certainly into the 24 election, the impact on people of color, particularly African Americans in the South and Latinos throughout the other states in the country.
So this is something that worked, in your opinion, and now they're rolling back some of these rights. Deforest, given your experience overseeing some elections in a government capacity, what would you say to current Elections Commission officials?
Well, on a federal level, there are none.
And that's the problem in your
There are no election officials on a federal level. We were the first commission to oversee a federal election. And when we did that, we discovered a number of very important things. One, the average American on election day does not know where to vote. Two, we still don't know how many people vote in a presidential election. We know how many votes are cast for a particular candidate. But there's no federal mandate that states report to the federal government the number of voters. That's important because we therefore don't know the undercount or the overcount. We don't know how many people went to the polls to vote and their votes never counted because there's no federal requirement. And so philosophically, I think the question really is voting an American right or is voting a state right?
Well, that is something we are going to look at all week. And don't go away, because we're going to get more of your take on it. Our guests are going to stick around for our heroes and zeros of the day. You won't want to miss it. There's an unexpected appearance from a bush. We'll be right back.